All right, so moving on to the final segment, we're gonna switch the gears here. Still talk about football, but we're gonna transition from the NFL to the college football world. And in this final segment, I will be sharing my thoughts on the college football playoffs, and I will be sharing my prediction of the final four, between the final four players and who will win the Heisman Trophy award this season. So let's talk about the college football playoffs now that they are officially set in stone for this college football season. On last week's episode, I said that at the time when I recorded, it was that number one seed was Georgia, the second seed was Michigan, the third seed was TCU, and the final seed was USC at the particular time when I recorded the episode last week. Now, the circumstances were, if the only reason why, and Ohio State was the team that was looking out, trying to get in. I said on last week's episode, I said Ohio State, the only way Ohio State gets in is with a USC loss in the Pac-12 championship game to Utah, or a blowout loss for TCU and the Big 12 championship to Kansas State. What happened? TCU lost in a nail-biter in overtime, and USC blew it. They lost against Utah in the Pac-12 championship, and they got blown out 47-24. There's no excuses why they got blown out, but if you look at that game when they were up 17-3, when Caleb Williams started to get banged up, he had that hamstring injury. We all know that Caleb Williams is a mobile guy that can make plays with his arm, make plays with his leg. When you have a hamstring injury, it's hard for you to make plays in the pocket, let alone escape the pocket when needed to, when you need to make plays with your legs. He had a hamstring injury in that game. Then messed up his hand pretty bad in that game. Lincoln Riley wanted to pull him out of the game, but with the heart and the mindset that Caleb Williams had, he wanted to stay in that game. And he still had over 300 passing yards, but just wasn't enough. It was a team loss, I will say, in that Pac-12 loss. Utah just manhandled them, rolled over them, steamrolled over them. 47-24, crushed the dreams that USC had of making the college football playoffs. They were out. But then I said Ohio State would get in if they lost that game. But then you have TCU. I said if they were to get blown out to Kansas State in the Big 12 championship game, they would be out. And I said it wouldn't be fair for the committee to take this team out if they lost this game in a nail-biter game, which the committee did the right thing by keeping them in this college football playoffs, because they lost a nail-biter and a heartbreaking loss to Kansas State in an overtime thriller, 31-28. So I'm glad that the committee did the right thing by keeping TCU in. They deserve to be in. It's not like they have 2 to 3 losses to their resume. They only have 1 loss to their resume, just like every other team does, if you're not the Georgia Bulldogs heading into the college football playoffs. So now USC is out, and now Ohio State Buckeyes are in. So the playoffs, we're going to get number 1 seed Georgia Bulldogs, the reigning defending college football champions, taking on the number 4 seed Ohio State in the Peach Bowl in the first round of the playoffs. Then you're going to have the other side of the bracket, where you're going to have the number 2 seed Michigan Wolverines taking on the number 3 seed TCU in the Fiesta Bowl. So I believe that 2 of these games are going to go down to the wire. I think they're 2 competitive games. I'm glad that, as good as it sounded to get Michigan versus Ohio State again in the first round, we are going to see Michigan take on TCU, which I would believe will be a competitive matchup. And we're going to get the number 1 seed Georgia versus Ohio State in a competitive matchup. So I think these are both compelling matches in the first round. And whoever wins the Peach Bowl or the Fiesta Bowl definitely has earned the right to be in the national championship game. So I'm liking how the playoffs are looking. This is actually, fun fact, this is actually the first time that Alabama and Clemson, since the college football playoffs expansion started, that they will miss the college playoffs. And it's better. I think it's better without both of these teams, because we know that Clemson won it a few years ago. Dabo Swinney and Trevor Lawrence won the chip a few years ago. Alabama is always competing for a national championship on a yearly basis. So you take these 2 teams out, we get something different. I like it. I like that Georgia's in. I like that Michigan's in. I like TCU's in. I like Ohio State's in. So bring something different this year. In my prediction from the beginning of the year, I only got 2 out of 4 teams that are in that I predicted all the way back in August before the season started, which was Georgia and Ohio State. So maybe next year I can get at least 3 out of 4 right, or maybe 4 out of 4 right. We're predicting who will make the college football playoffs before the season starts. So now let's move on to the next question in this segment. Who will win the Heisman Trophy? Now, the 4 finalists are down to it. It's down to quarterback Stetson Bennett from Georgia. We have Caleb Williams, quarterback from USC. We have quarterback from TCU, Max Duggan. And we have quarterback from Ohio State, C.J. Stroud. Those are the 4 guys that's in the running to win the Heisman Trophy award this season. And I'm going to break down who I believe is going to win the Heisman Trophy award. So let's start off with Stetson Bennett, quarterback from Georgia. I just say this respectfully, with all due respect to Stetson Bennett, and his story of being a starter is remarkable. He has earned the right to be the quarterback for the Georgia Bulldogs ever since winning the job last year. But I just don't think the world of this guy. When I think of this guy, it's like another a 2.0 Jimmy Garoppolo version, just at the college football level. He's being carried by 4-star, 5-star players at the best that the country has to offer. When you talk about Georgia, this is a guy that should really not be in the conversation for winning the Heisman Trophy. In my opinion, the only reason why he's here is because due to the fact of the torn ACL injury to Malik Hooker, quarterback from Tennessee. Unfortunately, didn't get to finish out his regular season off the right way. I believe if he stayed healthy and the torn ACL injury never happened, I believe that we would be talking about Malik Hooker being in this conversation, not Stetson Bennett. I just believe that he has no skill when he'll be entering the NFL draft next season. I believe he's going to be a 3rd, 4th round pick. He reminds me just like Jake Fromm, quarterback for Georgia a few years ago. The only difference is that Stetson Bennett can say he won a national championship and at his collegiate level experience, like Jake Fromm. But I just don't think that Stetson Bennett is the guy. But he deserves to be in this conversation due to the fact that Malik Hooker will not be in this Final Four mix due to his injury. He deserves to be in this conversation because offensively he is the one that's leading the team to being the number 1 team in the country. They do remain the top dogs in the college football. This year he has 3,425 passing yards, 20 passing touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. But like I said, he doesn't really have that much skill when you compare him to the 3 other guys that's in the running for this. He's throwing it off. Most of these are intermediate routes that he throws, similar like Jimmy Garoppolo does. Doesn't really have something exciting to bring to the table as a quarterback. But it is what it is. I don't believe that Stetson Bennett will win this award. Then you have Max Duggan, quarterback for TCU. He has had one heck of a year at TCU. He helped this program to not only be ranked the 3rd team in the country heading into the playoffs, but he has helped them achieve a really outstanding achievement for this program. This is TCU. He helped TCU have their first regular season undefeated, helping them to be a regular season undefeated team since 1938. So that's a remarkable reward. Pat on the back for Max Duggan for pulling that off, and for the whole TCU program. But it all starts and ends with your quarterback. He is a guy that you want to play alongside. You can see all the emotion that he puts a lot into this game of football. A lot. You can tell from his interview how emotional he was after that loss against Kansas State in the Big 12 championship game. He is a player that looks like he leaves a lot of blood, sweat, and tears on the field when he plays, but he has made a lot of credible plays this season with his arm. He possesses a lot of great pocket awareness skills. He makes a lot of great plays inside the pocket with his arm, making plays that a lot of quarterbacks in the country have not made this season. He's a mobile guy that can make plays with his leg as well. Currently, Max Duggan has had a season of 3,321 passing yards, 30 passing touchdowns with 4 interceptions. This is a guy that definitely deserves to make the list. But competition-wise, he hasn't seen the best competition. And that is the reason why I don't believe Max Duggan will win the award. I think he will finish third in Heisman voting this year. But kudos to him. A round of applause for him for having a great year. A legendary career for this team and this program of TCU football. And we talk about, it comes down to a two-man race to me. It comes down to C.J. Stroud and it comes down to Caleb Williams. Now let's talk about C.J. Stroud, who has found himself back in the Heisman Trophy conversation this season. Last year, he finished fourth in the voting last year. Was there last year in New York, but ended up fourth in the voting. He's had a great season for Ohio State this year, minus that game, that blowout game against Michigan. I still don't know what happened in that game, but despite that game, that was his only bad game of the season. He's had 3,340 passing yards, 37 passing touchdowns, tied for the most in the National Football League with passing touchdowns alongside Caleb Williams. C.J. Stroud, I do believe, should be the number one, the first quarterback selected in the 2023 draft. But I just don't think he's going to win the Heisman Trophy Award this year. To me, it's going to go to Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams deserves to win this award. This man has been a star since he came in the National Football League as a true redshirt freshman last year at Oklahoma, where he came in and took the job over Spencer Rattler. And ever since then, he's became a star in college football. And he played tremendously last year at Oklahoma, hit the transfer portal, followed Lincoln Riley to USC this season. And he's had an incredible sophomore season after transferring over. And he has helped this program do a complete 180 turn alongside Lincoln Riley. This was looked like a rebuilding build with this program. It didn't look like they were going to be competing with a chance to win not just the Pac-12 championship this year, but be in the college playoffs. They were just this close away from achieving both of those goals this season. Definitely, Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley deserve a lot of credit for making this happen for the USC program this year. But he's helped them to an 11-1 record this season, all the way up to the Michigan game. I did believe that C.J. Stroud was going to win the award, but just like in any other sport, when there's an NFL MVP race, when one guy has a bad game and the next guy behind him has a good game, and that's the only game that you could think of that's going to separate the two and the decision of why the other one should win the award and why the other one shouldn't, that is the same situation that I believe that just happened with C.J. Stroud and Caleb Williams. I believe the race was this close the whole entire time. But when I see C.J. Stroud get blown out like that in a regular season game, and then I see Caleb Williams step up and have a tremendous performance against Notre Dame that night, that same day, but following that night, it just made me think that Caleb Williams should win this award. Caleb Williams has had a great college season. He's had over 4,000 passing yards. He's had 37 passing touchdowns. Like I said a few moments ago, that is tied with the most at passing touchdowns alongside C.J. Stroud. But those stats right there sounds like an NFL stat line at the quarterback position. When Caleb Williams enters the draft for the 2024 NFL draft, he should be the number one overall pick no matter who's on the clock. That's how special Caleb Williams is. I see a lot of traits like similar traits like Patrick Mahomes plays like in Caleb Williams. But that is how I feel about the college football playoffs officially set in stone. All the matchups, how I feel about them, and who I believe will win the Heisman Trophy down to the between the four finalists. But that is all the time I have for you guys this week. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. It's your host, Thomas Tyree, signing off. And I'll see you guys on next week's episode.